Let's talk about tools for a moment. Ever since the first caveman used a stick to ward off a rabid squirrel, our love for tools has been unstoppable. And few games are more tool dependent than Minecraft. And that's partly due to kind of an oddity in Minecraft that everybody knows but no one really talks about. You see, I play a lot of sword and board type games. Now, don't worry, I'm not about to start comparing Minecraft to Dark Souls, but there is something that most of those games have in common that Minecraft doesn't, and that is a leveling system. Nice. I say that to mean you kind of are your tools and armor in this game, and you're basically nothing without them. This is Day 1 Gory, feeble, weak, scared of skeletons. And this is Day 100 Gory, capable, rugged, handsome. But take my items away and I'm right back where I started on Day 1. And this got me thinking, what is the most useful tool in this game? Now, I didn't say necessary or sufficient or even best, but the most useful, as in the most full of uses. What is the Leatherman tool, the Swiss Army knife of Minecraft? Well, let's try and find out. Now, we need to narrow the definition of tool a bit. I'm specifically talking about hand tools. Tools that you use in your hand to gain some sort of fitness advantage or manipulate the environment in some way. So, for example, I wouldn't consider a crafting table or a boat a hand tool, but I would consider a sword a hand tool. It's used in your hand. So having said that, I've put together roughly 25 different hand tools that we're going to talk about and determine which one is most useful. It's worth mentioning that I was trying really hard not to let this video turn into every possible use of every tool. So I may skip over some uses or just be unaware of them. Feel free to leave a comment letting me know if I missed any significant uses for any of these. Now, coming into this, a lot of you may be thinking about the pickaxe. And, the pickaxe is an iconic tool within Minecraft, but no. No, it really isn't the most useful tool. It's a great tool, but bottom line, the pickaxe really only shines at one task.
Turning big rocks into little rocks.
So although the pickaxe is an epic, iconic tool in Minecraft, it really doesn't qualify as most useful. And that's because the tool I have in mind is going to be useful across many different domains within the game. I mean, even the axe has a right-click function, but we'll get back to the axe. For now, let's head down to what I would consider the least useful tools and kind of work our way down. Now, there may be some surprises in here, but let's start with the map. It will map the area that you're in, which isn't useless. You can also drop markers on the map, and maps are used to find buried treasures, which is not useless. But really, I mean, if we're being honest, no, it's not going to be the map. The book I would put in a similar category to the map. Yes, you can write things in it. You can leave messages, you can jot down your coordinates, and let's not forget that you can enchant. Now, I would not consider all of the different enchantments that you can put on a book different uses, not at all. So, although the book is fairly useful, I would say it's still kind of in the category of a less useful item. We have a new tool, this one's fairly recent. The brush, if you find some suspicious sand, the brush is fairly useful. It does have an additional use now with the armadillo and getting armadillo scoots for dog armor. Is it the most useful tool in the game? I mean, I think we know the answer to that, and that answer is no. Now, next we have the compass. Compasses. There are 3 versions of the compass in Minecraft. You've got your basic out-of-the-box compass, which will always show you where spawn is. Now this isn't useless because it can be hard to find spawn, especially if you're playing in hardcore and you didn't mark it. And a lot of people like to find spawn chunks to build farms in. So the compass, I mean, it has a use. Is it the most useful? I would say, of course it isn't. So it's going. Next up, we've got the lodestone compass. Now the lodestone compass is fairly useful. It's similar to the regular compass, except it will find the lodestone that is associated with. So, you know, you just take a regular compass, you right click on a lodestone, and it will lead you back to the lodestone. That's a pretty solid use, but it's really one use. And considering that it's really a mid to late game item, as it requires a lodestone, which is made with a netherite ingot, again, I would say useful, yes. Most useful in the game, not even close. And then we have the recovery compass. The recovery compass is pretty cool. Useless in hardcore, but it will show you the last place you turned into a pinata. So that's pretty useful. Outside of that, though, other than being a fairly cool looking wall decoration. Oh, another side use, it will give away someone who is cheating their hardcore world if you happen to notice that it's pointing somewhere. It shouldn't be. Anyway, is it the most useful tool? It certainly is not. So we can go ahead and get rid of that. Next we have the bowl. Now the bowl has a ton of different... I'm just kidding. The bowl is not very useful. It's not a bad tool. The goat horn. Now the goat horn, it is a tool. I would consider it a tool, a hand tool. That's definitely the best one of the bunch. You know, you can annoy people with it. That's useful. Let people know where you're at. That's not useless. Is it the most useful? Sadly, no. It is not anywhere near the most useful tool. Next up, we have the lead. The lead is not bad. I have some in my inventory. The lead has quite a few uses. More recently in Java, you can now connect it to a boat. And once you connect to a boat, you can now move mobs with it, which is great. I know it's something that Bedrock has had for quite a while, but us Java players, it's pretty life-changing. Now, there's one issue with this. Pulling it uphill can be tricky, but all you need to do is be 2 blocks up, and you can pull it uphill. You can actually drag it. I'm just collecting sheep as I go. Another cool thing you can do now is, since you can attach a lead to a boat, you can make ropes for bridges and all kinds of things like that. The lead's not useless by any stretch of the imagination, but is it the most useful? No. No, it's not. So sorry, lead, you gotta go. Next up, we got the flint and steel. Now, the flint and steel obviously is a staple in Minecraft. It's good for lighting things on fire. Lighting, I don't know, your nether portal. Another good use of the flint and steel is to automatically cook your food. So, no, not the flint and steel. Next up, we got the spyglass. The spyglass is pretty cool. As a tool, it's useful, especially if you're playing Bedrock. Most people that play in Java have some sort of zoom mod that they use. I know I do. So it really has just the one use. So I'm sorry, Parrot, but it's got to go. Next, probably the least useful. I mean, it does have a use. It's a clock, and you can hang it on the wall. Sure, it will tell you what time of day it is. It doesn't really have a use other than a reference, but it's still a tool. You hold in your hand, and you can use it in your hand. Is it the most useful? Of course it isn't. Next, let's check out the fishing rod. Now, this is a little closer to what I have in mind. There's a lot of things you can do with the fishing rod. You can use it to yoink your friends up. They can use it to yank you off of things. Whoa, I had a half a heart left. Obviously, you can use it to fish. And, fishing's no joke in Minecraft. There are so many things that you can get while fishing. all of the treasure items. In this case, I just got a fish, but you can get books of mending, you can get all kinds of enchanted bows and enchanted fishing rods. You can grab items with it, albeit painstakingly, but you can do it. It has quite a few uses. If you want to pull a ghast into the overworld from the nether, fishing rod is your best bet. But is it the most useful tool? I mean, it's not. The shears. Now, shears have more uses than you might think. They used to be very basic, where you basically just used them to shear sheep, but they've gained some usability, especially in later versions of the game when they added the ancient city. Being able to break wool blocks quickly is pretty handy. And if you want leaf block early game, shears are your best bet. Or if you're looking to get vines or anything like that, shears are pretty handy. And although this is a little more useful in Java you don't want to kill the animals around spawn or where you're about to set up, because there are issues with neutral mob spawning once you've killed them. But shears allow you to get that wool off the sheep and not have to worry about it. You can also shear the mushrooms off a mushroom, which is pretty cool. So although we've found plenty of uses for the shears, and they're a great tool in the game, still, sadly, they do not qualify as the most useful. All right, what else we got? The bow and the crossbow, kind of in a similar category. Obviously, hitting things at distance, both the bow and the crossbow are going to be handy for that. But there's a couple other things you can do with them. Now, both the bow and the crossbow can activate redstone at a distance, which is pretty handy. The bow, I would imagine, for most people is preferred. I know I prefer a bow, but the crossbow does have an element that makes it fairly unique, and that is that you can charge it and then use other tools and weapons, and then when you're ready, you can quickly come back to the crossbow and fire it. The other thing you can do with the bow is give yourself potion effects by hitting yourself with a tipped arrow. But are they the most useful? Not really. Now let's take a look at the shield. Now the shield is not super useful. It's very specific use, which is great at the use that it has, which is to block damage. But is it the most useful tool? Probably not. All right, what about the hoe? The hoe is actually pretty useful. It's gained some uses in recent updates, but it's always been really good at breaking leaf block and skulk, all of the skulk items, like this annoying thing that's driving me crazy right now. It's also the preferred tool to break nether wart block and shroom lights, and then on top of that, you make crops with it. But it still does not quite cut it for most useful tool. All right, what about the shovel? I mean, the shovel's pretty cool. It has a ton of uses. It's a preferred tool for breaking things like gravel and sand, but it also has a right-click function. You can douse campfires with it. You can make path block. So I would say the shovel probably has more individual uses than the pickaxe, but is it the most useful? I mean, still the answer is no. All right, what about the trident? I mean, the trident has a whole bunch of uses. With the right enchantments, you can do things like fly, which is pretty cool. But you can also modify some of the other mobs, like the creeper, for instance. During a thunderstorm, you can charge them. You hit a villager with it, you get a witch, which is interesting if you ever want to do that. You can also modify a pig. But although the trident has a ton of uses, I really don't count enchants as a base use. So really, you can throw it, and then you have to go pick it up. So is it the most useful tool in the game? I mean, I think that's pretty obviously a no. Next up, we have the Mace, which is just a melee weapon. I mean, it gives you the ability to do some pretty cool stuff. But outside of that, It doesn't have a ton of different uses. It looks cool. It hits hard. It is a lot of fun, but it is just a melee weapon. There are no other functions for it at this time, but I am interested to see what Mojang decides to do with Mace in the years to come. I have a feeling it will get some other uses, but time will tell. As of right now, it is definitely not the most useful tool in the game. All right, what about the sword? Now, the sword is probably the most common melee weapon in the game, but it is also the preferred tool to break a couple different things. I mean, spider webs are going to break a lot faster with a sword than any other weapon, and it absolutely destroys bamboo. So it's not the most useful, but the sword is more useful than it looks at first glance. It still doesn't quite cut it, so sorry sword, but you gotta go. Alright, well, we're running out of tools. We've got the axe, and the axe is extremely useful in game. It's definitely the preferred tool to break all kinds of blocks. You can also remove wax from copper. You can remove oxidation from copper. You can strip wood. The axe is one of the best melee weapons in the game, upside the sword and mace, and it also has kind of a special use, which is it allows you to disable shields for a period of time, which is extremely helpful in PvP. All of those things combined make the axe certainly one of the most useful tools in Minecraft. Unfortunately, it still does not qualify as the most useful tool, and in fact, the most useful tool has been on my screen the entire time, as if to brag, deleting all of the other tools. And that tool is the bucket. The bucket is, without question, in my opinion, the most useful tool in this game. It has so many uses that I almost certainly will not be able to cover all of them in one video, but we're going to talk about some of the more common uses just to get an idea of how useful the bucket is. Let's first start with what you can actually put in a bucket. Now, there's 4 basic, we'll call them substances, that you can put in a bucket. And some people watching this are probably thinking, wait a minute, I thought it was 3. The one you're probably not thinking of is powdered snow. Now, there's a few reasons why this is handy. Aside from making deadly traps for your friends, it's a really good way to tell if you're about to step into powdered snow just by carrying an empty bucket around and right-clicking as you walk. You'll know immediately when you're about to step into a dangerous patch of powdered snow. If you want to build a froglight farm in a treasure bastion, for instance, you're going to need a bucket to move the powdered snow. You can place powdered snow 1 block above the ground, and the big magma cubes will break down into little magma cubes so that the frogs can eat them, and you can collect all of the blocks that they produce. The other 3 substances that most people know are going to be water, lava, and milk. Now, obviously, you can carry a bunch of different fish, tadpoles, axolotls in a bucket, but I would really just consider that still water. I wouldn't count those as individual uses, but let's go back down to one of the lesser used functions of the bucket, the milk bucket. Now, I don't need to go through a huge demonstration of the milk bucket. All I really need to say is there's one way to drink milk in Minecraft, and that's in a bucket. You cannot carry it or store it in any other way. And being as milk is a very powerful tool, allowing you to eliminate any status effect that you're given, I would say a milk bucket is one of the more OP items in the game. You can remove everything from levitation to poison and that most irritating of status effects, mining fatigue. Now, that's already a few pretty handy uses, and we're not even getting started yet. Let's check out one of the more useful bucket types, the lava bucket. Now, the basic use of the lava bucket is, well, I mean, it lets you pick up and move lava around, which enables you to do things like build farms, which is pretty cool. But aside from that, there's this thing in Minecraft. It's a structure. It's called a piglin bastion. And inside this piglin bastion is a jerk called a piglin brood, It is a horribly overtuned mob in the game. I can only imagine that the person developing the brute sneezed and added a couple extra zeros to the attack power, but either way, every now and then you're going to need to go in and deal with the brute. Now, a lot of people use the strategy of just blocking up and then firing pot shots at the brute with a bow or crossbow. This method has a fatal flaw though, because even though you have your gold helmet on and the other regular piglins aren't bothering you, the minute you attack the brute, they're going to aggro. And what's going to happen is they're going to hit you with their crossbow, knock you off your nerd pole, and then the piglin brute is going to touch your butt. The best way to avoid this is just to pull out your lava bucket and burn them to death. Because God love the piglins, they're not the brightest, and they just cannot seem to figure out where that lava is coming from. The lava bucket is one of the best weapons in the game, allowing you to covertly take out enemies like the brute without angering the surrounding mobs. Alright, finally we've come to the most common type of bucket, that being the water bucket. Now, the water bucket has so many uses that I'm bound to forget some, but let's check out a few of them. The water bucket is basically a cheat code for navigating dangerous terrain. You need to rappel down into a cave, get a water bucket. You need to safely climb out of a cave, get a water bucket. And although everybody knows about the water bucket MLG, less people know that you can also do it with lava, and even less people know that you can actually do it with milk.
He needs some milk.
I know more than one of you thought that might actually work. The uses for the water bucket just keep stacking up. Let's see how it does in the defensive arena. Let's say the next time you're in a cave, you just get mobbed by a bunch of zombies. You're low on health. Now, all you really need to do is just drop down some water out of your water bucket, and they can't get to you. You can take them out at your leisure. Or maybe you ticked off a bunch of Endermen. Just drop a water bucket and stand in it. Now, for an honorable mention, one of my favorite uses of the water bucket is just clearing out areas of all the grass and flowers. You want to build something or plant a farm, it just makes things so much easier. It's the best way to do it. Or if you're just collecting seeds. The bucket does not have durability. Diamond tools are great, but buckets are forever. You cannot upgrade a bucket past iron. That is because it would break the game. It's already too powerful. And I think we've seen today that whether it be utility, traversal, defense, or offense, the bucket is the most well-rounded and useful tool in the game. If you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you on the next one.